Hello, friends and clients of Walker Gates VAWA. I am Jennifer Walker Gates, board certified immigration attorney in Austin, Texas. I'm here today to talk about VAWA. VAWA is such an incredible benefit. It's one of my favorite types of cases to do. It is specifically for people who have experienced abuse and extreme cruelty in their marriage or in their family relationship to a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. And it's one of the very few benefits that allows applicants who qualify to become residents inside the United States without having to leave the United States. And that is true even if the applicant entered without permission. So not everyone qualifies for VAWA, and it is a tough situation that you have to have endured a lot of really difficult situations to qualify for VAWA. But the reason I love it so much is because it allows the immigrant survivor to take this situation that was so terrible and traumatic and turn it into something good for him or herself and his or her family. So I'm going to go through in this video the basic requirements, the process, how it works, and then give you some information about resources so that if you qualify for VAWA, you can go ahead and get started taking care of that. So I'm going to share my screen. I have some slides that I have prepared right here. So as I said, this is what we're talking about today, VAWA, what it is, the requirements, and how it works for immigrants. All right. So VAWA stands for the Violence Against Women Act, although it doesn't apply just to women. VAWA is a program that applies to men, women, and trans individuals. It applies to every gender. It allows people who qualify to petition for their own resident status. Many of you may know that in order to become a lawful permanent resident in the United States, most immigrants need a family member, a spouse, a parent, or a child to petition for them, sometimes a sibling, to file a petition for them so that they can become a resident. VAWA allows certain immigrants to file that petition on their own if they've suffered abuse. If their petitioner is abusive, they can file without that petitioner. But the idea of VAWA was to free survivors of their abusive situations, allow them to get their status legalized without the participation of that abuser and get out of the control of the abusive individual. So like it says here, VAWA enables relatives of abusive citizens or residents to apply for permanent residence without the involvement of the abuser. It's available for these individuals: husbands, wives, sons, daughters, mothers, and fathers of U.S. citizens. Okay, so if you have an adult U.S. citizen child and that person has subjected you to abuse or extreme cruelty, you can apply for VAWA. It also applies for husbands, wives, sons, and daughters of permanent residents. If your VAWA petition is approved, then you may be eligible to adjust your status in the USA, even if you entered without permission, okay? Now, the other great thing about VAWA is that we've seen in many cases that some people that even have a permanent bar are able through VAWA to go ahead and get their residency. There is actually a waiver that exists in VAWA for the permanent bar. Now you have to show that your second or third or the multiple unlawful entries were connected to the abuse that you were going through. Okay, but if you've had a situation where we've had clients where they left to go consular process, they were in an abusive relationship, during that time their case was not approved for some reason, and they knew that their children were not safe with the abusive spouse back in the United States. So they re-entered to take care of their children. That re-entry we've been able to show was connected to the abuse or the cruelty that they were dealing with. And in that way, we were able to get permanent bars waived. So even if you entered unlawfully, even if you have a permanent bar, VAWA may allow you to still become a resident if you meet the requirements. So it's important to know what the requirements are and what the situation is that applies to you. In addition, even if you can't show that the unlawful entry, that the permanent bar that you have was connected to the abuse, sometimes you can get a VAWA petition approved that allows you to have deferred action status and a work permit, even though you're not going to be able to apply for that residency. It still lets you, if you can get that initial part of the case approved, even though you don't qualify for residency, you can still qualify for deferred action and a work permit. So for this reason, I love VAWA. It's a very generous and very sensible legislation piece of the immigration law. The parts of the immigration law that apply to survivors of crime, domestic violence, and human trafficking are actually the parts of the immigration law that work best, in my opinion. The family-based immigration system has become so politicized and so problematic, but the individuals, the women really who fought for us to get VAWA and to get U visas and T visas passed back in 2000, they did a fantastic job of creating programs that really, really do help survivors. So I hope that anyone who's listening to this, who's watching this, if this applies to you, really hope that you'll take advantage of it, learn more, understand your rights, understand if you can take something that was horrible and turn it into something good for yourself, your future, and your family. Now, here are the requirements, okay? To qualify for VAWA, you have to be, as I said, husband, wife, son, daughter, mother, father, or of an American citizen, or the husband, wife, son, or daughter of a permanent resident. In addition, once you establish that family relationship, you have to show that you are a person of good moral character, okay? Criminal records and problems like that are generally not going to qualify under VAWA. Now, we've seen in many situations that an abusive U.S. citizen in particular will often use the criminal justice system against his or her victim. So if you do have a case where, the police were called on you and you were accused of domestic violence by your abuser, that doesn't necessarily disqualify you. There are provisions under VAWA that say, if this is what happened, if it can be shown that the abuser was responsible for getting this person arrested, then that will not be held against you, okay? You can still meet the good moral character requirement, even if you have a situation like that. When you can't meet the good moral character requirement is if you have any kind of like fraud, theft, crimes of moral turpitude, drugs, violence that you can't show is related to the abuse or cruelty that you are enduring. If you can't make that showing, and you're not able to meet the good moral character requirement, VAWA is not going to be an option for you. You also have to show that you have lived with the abuser, okay? And we try to include a minimum of 6 months, although that is not required. But it is required to have actually resided in the same home with this person. Then finally, of course, you have to show that you've suffered abuse or extreme cruelty committed against you by your U.S. citizen or resident relative. Abuse and cruelty do not mean that you have to have a police report. I go through this here in this process portion of this presentation, okay? When it's time to file for VAWA, the form that you file is Form I-360, and that can be found on uscis.gov. Form I-360 is a basic form for a number of different types of cases, so it's very long and you have to kind of figure out which part applies for VAWA petitioners, but Form I-360 is what you use. In addition to the Form I-360, you have to include documentation to prove that you meet all the requirements that I went through in that last slide, okay? Now, with respect to the abuse or cruelty, it is not mandatory to have made a police report. Evidence of violence is not required. Extreme cruelty is sufficient, okay? Now that can include verbal abuse, emotional abuse, control, manipulation, deceit, infidelity. We have seen work, name calling, any kind of behavior that tends to create a dynamic of control in the relationship where the victim feels like they're not worthy, they're not independent, they don't have their full humanity anymore, that can qualify as extreme cruelty. If you're filing an extreme cruelty case, you will not have to have a police report, but you will have to have a psychological evaluation. Those are really important in those extreme cruelty cases. And you have to provide a very detailed statement explaining what that cruelty looked like, what it felt like, how it evolved over time, how it began, and how it ended, okay? Or, you know what, it doesn't even have to have ended. Individuals who are still living in those abusive relationships can apply for VAWA. Again, the idea of VAWA is to provide a survivor with the opportunity to leave the relationship if and when they so choose. It is to eliminate the immigration problem for the survivor so that they don't have a legal status as an excuse over you anymore. Like if you are in a relationship where someone is saying, I'm going to have you deported, you're never going to have status, I'm never going to help you with your status, and calling you names with respect to your immigration status, that is extreme cruelty. That is what qualifies for VAWA. And so even if you're still in that relationship, you can still apply. Now, this also brings up an additional important point, which is that if you have gotten divorced from a spouse who was treating you this way, you have to file your I-360 within 2 years of that divorce, okay? So don't delay, make sure you take action quickly to take care of your immigration status, ideally through VAWA if you qualify. Now, if you are the spouse of a U.S. citizen or you are the parent or of an adult U.S. citizen or a minor child of an abusive U.S. citizen, when you file that I-360, you can also file the I-485, which is the application for adjustment of status, along with the form I-765, which is the application for work permit, okay? So people who are spouses of residents have to get the I-360 approved first, then they can file the I-485. But for immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, you are eligible to file everything concurrently all at once. So I know this is a lot of information that I've given you in this video. I hope that it's been helpful, but I can't possibly cover every single aspect of VAWA in this quick video. So if you need more information, please reach out to us at Walker Gates VAWA. You can call us at our primary phone number, which is 512-633-1785. That's our main office in Austin. We also have an office in San Antonio, and you can schedule virtual appointments with us very easily from anywhere in the United States. Because immigration law is federal, we have been able to help clients with VAWA cases from many, many different states around the United States. And we love, love, love doing that. So you can also go to our website at walkergatesvawa.com. There you can click to schedule an appointment with us, and it takes you directly into our calendars. There you're able to get on our calendar, and we can talk through your case and see if you qualify. Now, this is really, really important. If you are in Central Texas, there are a lot of resources available to help you as a survivor. Even if you're not in Central Texas, I encourage you, if you are experiencing abuse or extreme cruelty, please reach out to our resources here. Okay, you can call the 24-hour safe line here in Austin. They can help connect you to resources nationally. I am not familiar with the resources that exist in every state, or even really very many of them outside of Austin, but I do know that what we have here is a treasure. They have helped thousands and thousands and thousands of women and dozens of our clients at Walker Gates VAWA get out of and escape situations that were cruel and dangerous and horrible, and then begin to build a life. These women and men who have survived these relationships, who have gone on to move forward, move beyond them, they bring so much to our country, to our communities in terms of surviving and really being heroic in my mind. Not only did they survive the immigration process, they've also survived all of these other tremendous challenges, and the courage and strength and determination that requires only benefits us in the United States. So I thank you to those of you who have done that. To those of you who need to do it, please reach out to us. We would love to help you. I hope this has been helpful, and keep an eye open. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're going to have additional videos about other benefits that immigrants may be able to apply for that allow them to become residents in the United States without leaving the United States. All right, everyone, have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you very soon.